Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us, Live Healthy Miami Gardens Facebook Live. A wonderful opportunity when here we can engage in meaningful conversation on relevant topics, various topics, equipping us to live healthy. This is a project of Live Healthy Miami Gardens that uh, is here to serve the well being of the community, be it the city of Miami Gardens and beyond. Here today, if I may just jump right into our topic, is let's talk social isolation and how to cope over the holidays. My name is Horace Ward from the Episcopal Church of the Holy Family. And it is a tremendous, I have to repeat that 10 times, the joy that there is to welcome, to introduce um, Saskia Charles. And you are welcome. And Saskia, let's get straight to it. Kindly tell us a little bit more of yourself and of the work that you do and the great organization where you serve.
Okay. Thank you again for the introductions. Once again, my name is Saskia Charles. I am a licensed mental health counselor in the state of Florida. I have and newest member actually of the supervisory team at Center for Family and Child Enrichment. I have been with the agency now for closer to 5 years. I started off as a therapist. I worked in the community. I work with children at schools and home in just various capacities. I have been in the industry for more than 15 years, so that's quite some time. Um, I have more than 15 plus years experience in mental health in various capacities. My specialties are cultural issues, acculturation issues, a lot of depression, anxiety, trauma, things of that nature.
Saskia,
Mhm.
did I pronounce that name properly? Please correct me,
You
please.
did, you did. You're good.
I am good. I'm good. And what you're hearing, I mean, I can't even get my words out, is in preparation, as you have said again, introducing yourself really brings the deepest gratitude
Mhm.
for the work that you have been doing and that you are doing here amongst our people in the city of Miami Gardens.
Absolutely.
And when you talk about our next gens, you have just blown me over
Hmm.
because indeed um, they are our present,
Hmm.
and the
Absolutely.
support that we give and being healthy models will truly make a difference today and tomorrow. And so therein lies my joy as also um, that great institution organization that you serve here in
Hmm.
the city of Gardens. So thank you very much. So let's get on to the topic of social isolation and what is. Help me help us to better or further understand social isolation.
So, social isolation is the act of staying away from um, things that would generally make one feel uncomfortable. So, what we find is that during the holidays, there are different indicators that would let us know that someone is uncomfortable. For instance, if you're usually a social butterfly, all of a sudden you don't want to go anywhere. You just want to stay in bed. You want to watch TV all day. The favorite one I hear nowadays is people are playing video games a lot. That's usually somewhat of an indicator that there's something going on there that is unusual.
Okay. What I'm hearing is when I retreat or I
Mhm.
change my usual pattern of behavior.
Correct.
Um, let me be probably ridiculous. I'm not sure how that's going to come out.
Hmm.
Um, I was uh, at the store, UPS store,
Hmm.
and waiting in line. I was next in line, and a brother, three persons down behind me, um, started saying, "It's not. It's you. It's you. It's you. Go, 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 go."
Hmm.
I had a little anxiety, concern. My first reaction was to um, just shut down.
Hmm.
Does that border on something having to do with social isolation, though it's my being in public?
Generally speaking, yes and no. What we find is that because of the holidays and the stressors of meeting demands of our family, shopping, sometimes people are going above and beyond, extending further than their means. That brings a lot of personal anxiety. So what we find is that during the holidays, these symptoms tend to manifest a little bit more. So irritability, some feeling of stress and discomfort is definitely a part of it. However, with the example that you described, is a little bit of a difference there. It seems as though you were aware, you kind of knew what you were feeling, and hence why you can articulate it to me right now. However, some people are not in the capacity, they're not aware as much as others. So, what we find is that just as the person is being, um, I don't want to say belligerent because they are just encouraging you to move forward, but some people can retaliate just as um, what's the word I'm looking for? Just as I don't want to say aggressive, but just they can respond in the same manner. That's for us. What we usually find is that's when conflict tends to happen the most because people are in a hurry. Anxieties and expectations are a little bit more heightened during the holidays. Hence, why people tend to want to isolate a little bit more because they're anticipating on these tensions that you just spoke of.
Um, I put myself out there, and I thank you for your gentleness in commenting on my situation, because the piece behind that scenario is the mindfulness or the importance of self-awareness, which is
Correct.
really what this conversation is about, particularly having to do with social isolation, of
Hmm.
being anxious, and out of that you retreat or you pull back or you want to step aside. You
Correct.
do not want to. You don't have the energy for. Um, is what I'm hearing,
Right.
and or some of the signs or indicators as to the experience of social isolation. The other is having to do with, is this restricted, limited, or more pronounced, you could say, with any specific age group or even whatever other demographic? And those may be two different, categories, that of a specific age group or demographic, where social isolation is more vulnerable or more. experienced?
Social isolation, as an indicator of depression, tends to be more prevalent um, during for young adults, although it's less severe. As you alluded to, this could be because young adults uh, don't quite have the level of experience and expertise to be able to navigate some of the new changes that they're experiencing related to their developmental changes, right? But what we do find is that it has the most impact on adults between the ages of 45 to 65. As
Mhm.
you can imagine, there's a lot more experience there. Experience tend to be a little bit of a gift and a curse, if you will, right? Experience tells us that, we have gone through certain changes and that we can either come out of it in a positive way or negative way. So if you're someone who've had experiences, a lot of experiences, and the outcomes have been negative, the impression that you might have is that every other outcome may also be negative, which is a what we find is an indicator, which is a tie to depression. So depression is about a sense of hopelessness towards the future. So if you have someone within the age group of 45 to 65, experience as it is tend to tell you, oh, I can do this, or no, I can't do this, or the last 10 times I tried this, this has been the outcome. And if not properly treated, that thinking pattern, what we call negative cognitions or negative thought patterns, can become pervasive, meaning it'll is going to translate not just to this specific situation, but it'll run across various other settings, or situations where it may not be the most appropriate.
Fascinating description there as it relates to social isolation in the different age groups. I hear you
Mhm.
saying, so tell me, correct me here, that social isolation impacts us all, but
Absolutely.
it's more pronounced uh, in a particular age group, or maybe more older persons. I think you said what, 44 to 60
45 to
something.
65.
But then with their experience, uh, the tendency or the usual is to better manage, better navigate, to move forward. But then that's probably what you could say, more the average, more the normative, because you do have extremes,
Correct.
you know, probably. And I'm stretching the consideration here, because as I listen to you, um, different folks, different behaviors,
Hmm.
maybe having to do even with their otherwise health condition.
Correct.
Are they on medication,
Correct.
or have not been diagnosed for responsible treatment?
Correct.
And so the critical necessity, which is one of the purpose of our conversation here, is to tell the signs,
Hmm.
and also encourage persons to uh, find themselves, put themselves in situations where they can be more healthy, more balanced.
Correct. Hmm.
Um, so sounds like I'm taking away your job, Saskia.
Hmm. That's a big factor too. Unemployment, you know, um, or employability skills is a part of it as well.
And let's pick up on the challenge, or the trauma. I'm trying to use a um, you know, some widen the language here.
Hmm.
You talk about unemployment, and when this is a time of year when the expectations are there that you have to spend. This is a
Correct.
time of the year where the the sales are there, and I don't have the financial resources.
Mm-hmm.
I then I'm drawn into the retreat, the social isolation. That's where,
Mm-hmm.
anxiety or the depression and whatever other terminology takes over.
Mm-hmm.
And then what are some of the coping strategies that I would need? I'm just using myself as a point of reference. What are some of the coping strategies that I could employ uh, to manage to be more balanced at this time of the year?
So, no bias there, right? As a professional or a professional helper, if you will, one of the things that we usually recommend is to speak to a therapist to help you navigate coping in a healthy way. What do I mean by that? Some people are coping, but the way that they're coping are either negative or unhealthy, right?
Mhm.
Coping in a form of alcohol, coping in a form of drugs, coping in a form of self cutting, or coping in a form of violence or conflict, if you will. These are unhealthy forms of coping. So usually, what we recommend, it goes back to, as you mentioned earlier, it's understanding what plan ahead would be the second thing, right? Understanding where you are during the holidays. The holidays are known to be, for a lot of people, a very exhausting time of the year for a lot of people for various reasons. So, talking to a therapist to help you to navigate that um, in a healthy rather than unhealthy way. So we look at things like the negative thought patterns that we talked about, the self talk. We look at meditation strategies, stress
Mhm.
management. These are things that we look at. How do we help you to identify people in the community, in your community, that could be supportive, that could be a pastor, a youth leader, it could be a member in the church, an elderly person in the church who you're close to. It could be a close family friend. Planning ahead for that period of time and activating the support system so you're less prone to isolation during this most vulnerable time. Those would be one of a few ways that people can cope with isolation, which can also lead to depression.
One critical piece here, actually, there are two,
Mhm.
is planning ahead.
Correct.
In other words, whether you call it time management, whether you call
Hmm.
it energy management, maybe even you could call it just simply um, write down or keep tabs, so to speak, of what it is that is happening to you,
Hmm.
or even the kinds of activities that you're interested in, and be able to look at and be organized as to the when, the where, the how, and whatever that is of help and
Hmm.
reward, benefit to you. That this is being able to cope
Hmm.
during this time of the year, which has its stresses.
Right.
There's the traffic, there's the long line, so that if I have to go shopping, are you saying that choose the best time of the day?
Absolutely. Part of staying ahead also involves prioritizing, right? What can you do? What is the most appropriate thing that you would want to do. Setting boundaries is another thing, right? I only have $100, but I'm expected to purchase $1,000 worth of gifts for everyone. Um, not only do I not have the resources for that, but I might not want to do that. I might want to save a little bit because I'm anticipating on some personal changes. Um, Again, a therapist will help you to develop the language, because I think sometimes that's the hardest part, right? It's like, how do I say this without being rude or being nasty? And when people don't receive that well, am I going to be okay? So part of it is developing the language to say, hey, mom, dad, or hey, grandma, or hey, auntie, or hey, cousin, or hey, daughter, son. It's going to look a little bit different this year. This year, due to a number of changes, I think I want to go about things in this way rather than how I was accustomed to doing it with you. Sometimes that the landing of those conversations doesn't pan out very well. So that in itself create a lot more stressors for people, right? It's like, what do I say to my mom and dad if I don't really have the money to take that plane, that flight to go see them? How are they gonna feel? Are they gonna think I'm a bad daughter or a bad son? How do I say that without hurting anybody's feelings? So sometimes that could be another piece of it as well.
I'm hearing things like being open,
Being open. Absolutely.
being forthcoming,
Absolutely.
or in other words, being willing to risk, or maybe even being trustful of someone else, or to have a partner, or maybe an accountability uh, partner to manage, or that's a part of my self-awareness.
Correct.
So rather than be, as you would say, be pulled away or get off track, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and, and becoming and impose myself, uh, the self-isolation is to look out at others, those, again, repeating, whom I could trust, whether it be a relative within the family or someone outside of the family, who
Correct.
can, and for which I'm grateful, because what you're saying is that these are some of the self-care practices. Are there
Absolutely.
some other self-care practices that you'd like to mention?
The other one that we are particularly fond of is maintaining physical activity, right?
Okay.
Obviously, if you're sitting at home all day, you're ruminating through your thoughts, um, thoughts that can be negative at times. So you don't want to create that downward spiral for yourself. So engaging in some form of physical activity. For a lot of people, it could be mowing the lawn, it could be going to the gym, it could be taking a leisure walk, it could be walking your dog, spending time outside. Um, for people who tend to be more introverted, even though mental activities, things like reading, are generally good practice, um, what we hesitate a little bit with recommending that, particularly for people who are more introverted, right? Let me explain what I mean by that. So people who are more introverted tend to be more laid back, more self-reserved, not as out there as people would say in comparison to others. So you're doing more one-to-one activities. Like they might go out, but they're not doing too much. They're usually more reserved, more to themselves, right? Things like reading, meditation, even though in theory are good activities because it helps your brain to stay active and less focus on negative thoughts. what we find is that because it's a one-to-one type of activity, we caution against using those type of activities by itself. We usually like to pair it with other activities so there's a balance, much more synergy between the mental and the physical. For people who are isolating or introverted, having alone time, it's like that's like your happy place. But during the holidays where depression is a lot more prevalent, what is typically your happy place may actually, like if it turns into a like a isolating borderline depression, it's going to be harder to track because it's part of who you are. So we usually ask that people are very careful with these isolating activities, particularly if you're introverted, and pair it with some kind of physical activities. That way, if there's a deviation from what the norm is, you'll be able to pick it up a little bit quicker, or your friends or other people will say, well, I know Johnny likes to read, but he's been in that room for 8 hours. That's not like him, or he didn't even come out for breakfast today. That's not like him. Even though Johnny is usually kind of hang back in the room, hanging tight, chilling, playing, we can tell when there's a deviation from what the norm is.
It sounds to me like you hear while traveling, if you see something,
Hmm.
then say something.
Correct.
And that applies in whatever context, whether it be an individual or personal context. If I see something happening, or I'm
Hmm.
aware of something happening, I need to say something towards doing something. Likewise, in be it the family or the group context,
Hmm.
if you see something, you just mentioned the scenario. If Johnny has been in the room for 8 hours, then you know, ask questions. Um,
Correct.
don't just um, make an excuse, away. Engage, engage, engage. 'Cause you never can tell what's
Absolutely.
going on there. Um, this is truly, truly helpful. I wish we had far, far more time to dig even further. But can you tell us about the services offered from your place to support individuals and families during dealing with social isolation?
Absolutely. So CFCE have been around, particularly in the Miami Gardens community, for a very long time. We're one of the oldest, if not the oldest, agency, social service child welfare agency in Miami-Dade County. So we provide a whole range of services from therapy. We cover Miami-Dade County, so from um, was Aventura, as far down as Homestead. There are therapists available. We have licensed clinician from various diverse background. We have Creole speaking, some instances Spanish speaking therapists who can travel to the home, meet with you in person. We're finding that a lot of people since COVID are preferring what we call telehealth services, where you don't need transportation, you don't need anything. You just turn on your computer. We give you an access code. You log in, and you could speak to a therapist one-on-one about the issues that you may be experiencing. In addition to that, the agency also provide like medical services. One of the things, particularly with me being a Caribbean background therapist, is we oftentimes overlook the medical component in connections to things like anxiety and depression. Because in my culture and in my country, mental health doesn't exist. So what we would say are things like, oh, you just need to, oh, you're just going through something. The thought of like things like your diet, high blood pressure, things like cholesterol, diabetes, to have what we would call an adverse effect on your overall health, right? So when we talk about mental health, we're not just talking about mental health, we're talking about your health overall. And the agency is well poised to be able to provide services in whatever capacity that your symptoms may be manifesting in. So it could be a medical component. It could be dental. Incidentally, that's a thing. Because if it's been years, you haven't seen a dentist, all of those symptoms manifest differently. Um, Things like checkups, routine checkups. That's a part of good health, which connects to your mental health. Family conflict. We have a family preservation program. Substance abuse. There's a close tie between substance abuse, depression, and anxiety. Particularly during the holidays, people are isolated, oftentimes away from their families, their children, or perhaps they suffered a breakup or lost someone, a loved one, or they're caring for a loved one. These are all stressors that can lead someone to have mental health problem. And so, in whatever capacity it is, you just reach out to us. We'll jot down your information. We take a referral and we route it to whatever department that it is that you need the most help for.
And so that the Center for Family and Child Enrichment
Mhm.
is a multifaceted um, organization that
Absolutely.
is available, or that those services are available. How about cost? You know, is insurance needed? Is it at no cost, meaning free? What is the fee or the financial part of making myself available or seeking help through the Center for Family and Child Enrichment?
Really good question. So what we find is that the bulk of the clients that we work with have Medicaid. So Medicaid does allow you to, or they pay for your mental health services, right? Medicaid gives us about 6 months to be able to work with a client. So if you have Medicaid, the services they're not free, but Medicaid does provide for it. There's other options as far as sliding scale fees are concerned. In instances where people don't have Medicaid and perhaps they might not have private insurance, or maybe they do, but they don't want to go that route, or maybe they have EAP, but they don't really want to go that route either. They can just, again, we'll process the referral. We have an in-house finance person who reviews your income. Of course, you'll have to provide us with that information, like your pay stub and things like that. And we give you a fee based on what your income level is. What I find is it can range, the out of pocket expense can range anywhere from $1 to $10. It all depends on what your income is.
We have been in conversation with Saskia Charles from the Center for Family and Child Enrichment here in the city of Miami Gardens. Our topic has been Let's Talk Social Isolation. And Saskia, if someone would want to be in touch with the center, could you tell us again how that can happen?
Absolutely. So the best way to reach us is by calling 305 A help desk person will take the information from you. We have a referral form that we complete, and again, we route it to the appropriate department. So if it's for therapy, we route it to the therapy or what we call behavioral health department. If it's for medical, we route it to the pediatric and family health and wellness.
Is there a 24-hour or connection capability, or is it just regular business hours?
For right now, it is regular business hours until you're connected to either an assessor. So what happens is once we complete the referral form for you, we then assign the case to a licensed clinician who is going to be responsible for making contact with you. So they're going to give you a call and schedule a time where you're either coming into the office to sign the paperwork, the consents, and things like that, because you have to give us permission to work with you, and of course review the sliding scale fee and all of that other stuff. We also review confidentiality, things that we have to by law report, things like self harm, things like anything that could be potentially harmful because we're what's called mandated reporters. So if we have information of that sort, we're mandated to report it. So the assessor will arrange a time to meet with you, and then if anything happens from then on, you can contact the assessor. And then once the intake is completed, the intake essentially consists of the consents that I talked about earlier and a biopsychosocial assessment. That's when the assessor meet with you to figure out exactly what's going on there. We give you what's called a clinical impression. Based on what we're hearing from you, this is what we think it's going on. And we give you some indication in terms of what we're going to be doing to help you, right? In some instances, it could be we recommending individual therapy or family therapy or case management or psychiatric evaluation, because sometimes people, the symptoms are a little bit more severe than we would like it to be and poses a danger or risk to the client. So we do have a psychiatrist on board where we can recommend you for, as well as a psychologist. And of course, I talked about the clinic. So once you're connected to that main person, you can call that person if there's an emergency and they would be responsible for following up. Or you can contact a supervisor and then we'll be responsible for following up as well.
So that, especially at this time of the year, with the festivities and other expressions of characteristic of this time of the year, uh, assistance or help or partnering to be of benefit is available. And here, through the Center for Family and Child Enrichment, could you give the address, please?
Absolutely. So the address is 1825 Northwest 167th Avenue, 67th Street. So it's 1825 Northwest 167th Street. That's in Miami Gardens. We're home. Florida 33056.
Saskia, this has been more than a very, very, really exciting, conversation, because what you've done is you've said, Horace, here are some things happening. Beat social isolation. All is not lost. There are possibilities, and we here at the Center for Family and Child Enrichment, we're here to serve. We're here to come alongside you, and that you can make the best of your life. You can have have the balance, or if you want to talk about the health with the balance, or however you want to put that,
Mhm.
that this season can be one of, fun, meaningful for you and for those around you. Saskia,
Absolutely.
are there any parting words? I know I've asked the very same question in a different way, but anything you'd like to share with us that we may not have covered?
Absolutely. I just want to add too that the spirit of mental health is changing. What we're finding is that more and more people are accessing behavior health services, not simply because things are wrong or like things are bad or things have gone so far out of my control. What we're finding is that there's an influx of clients who are coming to us because they want things to get better, right? Like things are going good. Like my social anxiety is not quite that bad, but I know I usually have a hard time surrounding the death or whatever around this time. I want to plan for that. I want to work with someone that's going to help me to keep my weight down. So what we're finding is that people are more interested. More and more people are coming to us because they're interested in prevention as well. So it's not simply because, it's happened already and we need help with whatever happened. It's more of it hasn't happened or I don't want it to happen. So I'm taking the steps necessary to empower myself with information and knowledge to be able to remain healthy over time.
Wow. Thank you so very, very much
Thank
to
you.
share this conversation on behalf of Live Healthy Miami Gardens initiatives. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
As we end, can I let you into a little secret here?
Absolutely.
I I would like to ask that you be asked to come back after the holidays, because our
Okay.
conversation has been about looking forward or preparing for the holidays.
Okay.
And is it possible then, we go from the holidays into a new year, and that
Absolutely.
has its own experience as well. And so, how do we move from season to season to season? Is that I'm hoping that you will return, that this conversation will continue. Um,
Thank you.
Given the for me the joy, and with that the deepest gratitude for being here today. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Saskia Charles from the Center for Family and Child Enrichment here in the city of Miami Gardens.
All right.
Thank you, thank you,
Thank you.
thank
Bye.
you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.